In our headlines on this Tuesday, July 14th, here in South Korea, the Lee Jae-myung administration seeks to gather public opinion on a viable real estate policy as apartment prices in Seoul rise for 74 consecutive weeks as of the first week of July. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump pledges to degrade Tehran's military capabilities related to the Strait of Hormuz while proposing a fee on cargo shipments passing through the critical waterway. And global oil prices surged over 9% on Monday, hitting their highest levels in a month amid renewed concerns over energy shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. We start over at the top office on this Tuesday, where President Lee Jae-myung chaired his weekly cabinet meeting with a call for public debate to address soaring home prices as his administration seeks a new real estate policy. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
As the Korean government prepares new measures to rein in soaring housing prices in the capital area, President Lee Jae-myung says it's time to listen.
의견을 최대한 많이 들어본다. 합리적인 의견으로.
Lee's remarks came as government ministries kicked off a 3-day series of policy forums on Tuesday to gather ideas. Experts and members of the public will discuss 3 key areas: housing supply, finance and loans, and real estate taxation. Describing housing as Korea's biggest challenge, President Lee called on his cabinet to identify the key issues for productive discussions.
워낙 복잡하고 또 예민하고 또 아주 사소해 보이는 것도 엄청난 영향을 미치는 중요 의제라서 근데 얘기하자면 끝이 없는데 또 어쨌든 중요한 거거든요. 이런 걸 뽑아야 얘기가 돼요. 안 그러면
One of the most contentious topics is whether owners of higher value homes should pay higher property taxes. President Lee even asked viewers watching the cabinet meeting live for their opinions.
초고가에 대해서는 좀 차별적으로 부담시키는 게 좋겠다에 동의하시면 1번, 그거 아니다 2번 한번 눌러주시면 좋겠습니다.
The result?
이 부분의 댓글이 1번입니다.
비중이 얼마나 돼요?
일반 한 90%대
90%. 초고가 주택은 실거주 1주택이라도 좀 강화하자는 점에 대해서는 대체적으로 동감하는 것 같네요.
The discussions come as apartment prices in Seoul have risen for 74 consecutive weeks as of the first week of July. The ideas raised during this week's ministry-led discussions will feed into a final meeting chaired by President Lee next week before the government unveils its new housing measures as early as this month. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
And the Finance Ministry has raised its growth outlook for the South Korean economy to 3% this year, taking into account the country's remarkable chip exports. Our picture covers this upward revision.
Unveiling its economic strategy for the second half of the year on Tuesday, the government has significantly upgraded the country's growth outlook. The real GDP growth forecast for this year has been revised upwards to 3%, a substantial leap from its initial 2% projection. If achieved, this will mark the highest growth rate since 2021. Meanwhile, nominal GDP growth, which includes inflation, is projected to reach 12.3%, marking the highest level in 3 decades. The adjustment comes as rising chip exports lead to faster corporate investment across the country. Accordingly, the government officially announced its new 345 vision to achieve a fundamental turnaround for the Korean economy.
올해가 잠재 성장률 3%, 세계 무역 4강, 국민소득 5만 불이라는 대체 불과 대한민국으로 도약하는 원년으로 기억될 수 있게 힘을 모아주시길 부탁드립니다.
To achieve this, Korea is accelerating its 3 major mega projects centered on semiconductors and AI. On top of that, new super innovation projects such as sensors and next-generation secondary batteries will be newly designated for aggressive development. With strong tax revenues, the government will provide massive funding to secure these advanced technologies. Also, the government has identified young people and talent development as its core investment targets. This year's net employment gains are expected to slow to just 1,500,000, down about 40,000 from last year. This comes amid persistent global risks and a sluggish recovery in the domestic construction sector. In response, the government has pledged to train 200,000 young specialists in high-tech fields and create 200,000 new job opportunities. To help young people build long-term wealth, the government will launch a new youth-type individual savings account, which will offer tax-deductible benefits and tax exemptions on investment returns. Officials also promise to quickly address regional gaps and the economic divide between industries. To counter the risk of a triple high inflation, high interest rates, and high exchange rates, the government will deploy full-scale stabilization measures, including large-scale food discounts and flexible energy price controls. 백주희, Arirang News.
And South Korea's minimum wage for next year will soon be announced. The Minimum Wage Commission resumed talks earlier on this Tuesday to tackle the remaining 690 Korean won gap between labor and management. The labor is demanding 11,220 Korean won per hour, while the management proposes 10,530 won per hour. If discussions fail to bridge this gap, a vote is expected to take place. The minimum wage saw an increase of 1.7% in 2025 and 2.9% in 2026. In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump has pledged to degrade Tehran's military capabilities related to the Strait of Hormuz while proposing a security fee on cargo shipments passing through the critical waterway. Our Kim Jun-hong explains.
The U.S. military says it resumed strikes against Iran on Monday. In a social media post, U.S. Central Command said it began a third straight night of attacks. According to CNN, the operation targeted Iranian military assets, while Iranian state media later reported explosions in the port city of Bandar Abbas. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump said the goal was to eliminate Iran's capabilities related to the Strait of Hormuz.
We are just going forward. We're attacking them tonight. We're taking out all of their capability for anything having to do with the Strait, with the Hormuz Strait.
This comes just hours after Trump signaled more strikes against Iran as hostilities between the two countries resumed last week. During a radio interview, Trump vowed the U.S. would hit Iran very hard that night and again the next day. He also described the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran as a test he would rather have avoided, saying it didn't mean much. Earlier that day, Trump said the U.S. would charge ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz for security. He proposed a fee equal to 20% of each vessel's cargo value. The move reverses his administration's stance just last month that any fees or tolls on the international waterway would violate international law. Meanwhile, the UAE Defense Ministry said Tuesday that 2 tankers were hit by Iranian cruise missiles while transiting the Strait of Hormuz. The announcement came shortly after the U.S. military launched a new wave of strikes on Iran. 1 Indian crew member was killed and 8 others were wounded. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Telegram that it had struck vessels that it described as rogue supertankers. It claimed the ships switched off their navigation systems, ignored warnings, and attempted to enter a mined route in the strait. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the broader ripple effects of the renewed fighting between the U.S. and Iran have been swift, with global oil prices soaring and the U.S. stock market sinking. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Oil prices surged more than 9% on Monday, reaching their highest levels in a month as renewed fears over energy shipments through the Strait of Hormuz rattled global markets. The sharp rise came after reports that a U.S. naval blockade set to begin Tuesday will cover Iran's entire coastline, ports, and oil terminals, as well as all vessels, regardless of their flag. Brent crude futures for September jumped $7.29, or 9.59%, to settle at $83.30 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures for August rose $6.73, or 9.42%, to $78.14 a barrel. Brent posted its biggest one-day dollar gain since April 2nd, and its highest closing level since June 12th. U.S. crude recorded its largest daily increase since April 29th and its highest settlement since June 15th. According to the U.S. Navy-led Joint Maritime Information Center, the blockade is scheduled to be reinstated on July 14th at 8 p.m. UTC after it was lifted in mid-June. U.S. President Donald Trump said the United States would also collect 20% of the value of all cargo shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, following renewed military exchanges with Iran. The escalation also weighed heavily on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.26%, the S&P 500 dropped 0.79%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq slid 1.55%. 이승재, Arirang News.
Today, that is July 14th, South Korea celebrates an annual day aimed at raising awareness about those who chose to cross the inter-Korean border into the southern part of the peninsula. Now, this year, the celebration comes amid the adoption of a new name for these individuals by the Unification Ministry. That being said, our Kim Do-yeon covers the North Korean-born Citizens Day.
The song Longing for Kumgangsan Mountain opened Tuesday's main ceremony for South Korea's third annual North Korean-born Citizens Day. More than 1,000 North Korean-born citizens and government officials gathered at Kintex in Gyeonggi-do province to mark the occasion. President Lee Jae-myung also delivered a message pledging the administration's support.
Adapting to an unfamiliar society and starting anew is never easy. You must have endured immense difficulties learning new skills, meeting new people, and carving out your own place.
Under the theme, Embracing Our Home, Bridging Peace, participants had the chance to connect with fellow North Korean-born citizens in South Korea who shared the unique experience of building a new life. From college students to public service workers, attendees shared their resettlement journeys. They highlighted both their successes and the ongoing hardships of facing social prejudice in a new community.
My job involves handling civil complaints, but because my hometown is Musan in Hamgyongdo province, my voice tone is quite high. Callers have often mistaken me for a voice fisher.
To date, South Korea has recorded a cumulative total of 34,600 North Koreans who have resettled in the South. The Ministry of Unification vowed to improve the practical foundations for long-term social integration, including the changing of the term from North Korean defectors to North Korean-born citizens.
This year, for the first time, we mark this day using the term North Korean-born citizens. A name defines identity, and its history is complex. The term defector harbors discrimination and exclusion, instantly bringing back painful memories of the past.
Interactive booths were set up across the venue, providing customized information on local community services and educational programs. With Tuesday designating the official day for North Korean-born citizens, this entire week is marked as a period of national celebration. Until the end of the week, local governments across the country will host cultural events and forum discussions. The nationwide campaign aims to foster better public understanding and build an inclusive environment for the North Korean-born community. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And South Korea's Air Force is partaking in the multinational air exercise Pitch Black 2026 in Australia starting Friday this week. Accordingly, a send-off ceremony took place on this Tuesday ahead of the 3-week training for which 6 KF-16 fighter jets and some 100 personnel will be deployed, supported by aerial refueling tankers and transport aircraft. The fighter jets will depart on Wednesday for the 7.5-hour non-stop flight hosted by the Royal Australian Air Force. The drill will bring together aircraft from 16 countries, including the US, Japan, and Spain. Korea is joining the exercise for the third time this year since making its debut in 2022. Over in Venezuela, nearly 3 weeks after the devastating twin earthquakes, tens of thousands remain missing as aftershocks continue to challenge recovery efforts. This while survivors grapple with worsening humanitarian conditions and the psychological toll of losing loved ones. Our Shin So-eun has the latest.
Venezuela has struggled for weeks in the aftermath of a devastating series of earthquakes, with recovery efforts hampered by continued aftershocks in a deepening economic crisis. Since the initial earthquake struck on June 24, rescue crews have been working to clear vast amount of debris, but supportive measures continue to be halted by persistent aftershocks, with more than 1,220 recorded so far. Authorities say the death toll has risen to at least 4,561, while another 16,740 people have been injured. The earthquakes also caused widespread infrastructure catastrophe, leaving more than 850 buildings damaged, including nearly 200 that were completely destroyed.
I saw my grandmother die. I was there. She was moaning in pain, but I alone couldn't do anything. My uncle's wife was underneath my grandmother, and she told me she was talking to my grandmother, that she was also alive.
Residents continue to struggle with limited access to essential services, including housing and healthcare, while nearly 18,000 people remain displaced in temporary shelters. The ongoing seismic threat has left many living in fear and mourning their losses amid pressure on survival.
It's tough, brother. No, this hasn't been easy. We're still on edge about this whole situation. Today I've come down to fish, but, well, thank God we're alive and well. Many people are dead, this whole thing.
Beyond the humanitarian crisis, the disaster is also intensifying economic pressure on Venezuela. The country's monthly inflation rate rose to 13.8% in June, more than double May's figure, pushing inflation for the first half of the year to 129.8%. Economists say uncertainty surrounding reconstruction along with soaring demand for U.S. dollars has weakened Venezuela's currency, the bolivar.
The third priority is to maintain the objective of debt restructuring. We are also continuing to refine the macroeconomic framework and debt sustainability analysis, incorporating the economic impact of the earthquakes.
While Venezuelan officials say recent gains in oil production have raised cautious hopes of an economic recovery, economists warn that rising reconstruction costs and supply chain disruption could fuel further inflation and prolong the country's financial crisis. 신소은, Arirang News.
This is the world now. Yemen's Houthis launched missiles at Saudi Arabia on Monday, breaking a 4-year truce between Saudi Arabia and the Iran-aligned group. Saudi forces reportedly intercepted the missiles targeting the country's southern region. The Houthis said they targeted an airport in Abha, a popular summer destination near the Yemen border. The strikes followed accusations that Saudi Arabia had bombed an airport under Houthi control in Sana'a. Yemen's internationally recognized government said it targeted the Sana'a runway to block an Iranian aircraft from landing. That aircraft later landed at a Houthi-controlled airport on Yemen's Red Sea coast. A separate aircraft belonging to the Red Cross remained held at Sana'a airport, though the organization confirmed its crew and staff were safe. South Carolina's governor has appointed Darlene Graham Nardone, sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, to fill his vacant Senate seat. President Trump had publicly recommended Nardone for the role, calling the appointment a fitting tribute to her brother, quote, who loved her dearly. She is expected to be sworn in this week and will hold the seat until January, preserving the Republican Party's 53-47 Senate majority on paper. The absence of Graham and Senator Mitch McConnell leaves Republicans with an effective 51-seat working majority. The Republicans will hold a special primary on August 11th to determine their candidate for South Carolina ahead of the midterms. In Bangladesh, flash floods and landslides have killed at least 51 people. Cox's Bazar, home to the world's largest refugee settlement, accounts for 28 of the confirmed deaths. Thousands of families have lost their homes, including some in the capital Dhaka, where many streets are waterlogged. Authorities have evacuated residents from high-risk zones, but local officials have questioned the effectiveness of Dhaka's drainage infrastructure. Weather forecasters expect conditions in the southeast to improve soon, though monsoon rain in northern regions raises the possibility of further inundation. New Zealand actor Sam Neill, known for his roles in Jurassic Park and The Piano, died on Monday in Sydney at age 78. His family described the death as sudden and unexpected, saying he remained cancer-free after being diagnosed with a rare form of lymphoma in 2023. Neill built a decades-long career spanning arts, films, and Hollywood blockbusters, earning 3 Golden Globe nominations and a knighthood for his contributions to film. Director Steven Spielberg, who cast Neill in the original Jurassic Park, praised their work together and called him unforgettable to fans worldwide. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
Amid the sweltering heat, rain is in the forecast today. Rain will begin this afternoon across the central regions and the Jeollado provinces before spreading to most parts of the country tonight. Northern Gyeonggi-do province could pick up more than 120 millimeters, and northern Gangwon-do province could see more than 100 millimeters of rain. Most of the rain will taper off by late tomorrow afternoon. But it's not just the rain you'll want to watch. Strong winds are also picking up nationwide. Seoul is under a strong wind watch, so take extra care if you're heading outside. Even with the rain, the heat isn't going anywhere. Tomorrow will be a little cooler than today, but with plenty of humidity in the air, Seoul will start the day at 24 degrees Celsius and Daegu 26 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 30 degrees, Daejeon 30 degrees as well, and Gyeongju will soar to 37 degrees. Looking ahead, another round of monsoon rain will return to the southern regions and Jeju Island starting Thursday. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Those are the headlines at the Star here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.